In the quiet little town of Maplewood, nestled between rolling hills and whispering pines, lived a boy named Lucas and his parents, Grace and David Bennett. Life moved slowly in Maplewood, the kind of place where neighbors knew your name and porch lights glowed like fireflies in the dusk. But for the Bennett family, the days passed differently, not with the usual comfort of small-town rhythm, but with the silence of a child who didn't speak. Lucas was 12 years old. He had warm brown eyes and a gentle demeanor, but he lived inside a world of his own, a world no one could enter. He didn't speak, didn't make eye contact, and rarely reacted to the voices that called his name. Doctors said he had autism. Specialists, therapists, teachers, they all tried. And though they meant well, their words faded like whispers in the wind. Grace often stood at the window, watching her son sit cross-legged in the backyard, tracing shapes in the dirt with a stick. David, a carpenter with worn hands and a heavy heart, would sometimes pause mid-saw to glance out at the boy he barely knew. What they wanted wasn't anything grand, just a smile, just one word. Mom, Dad, anything. It was during one of Lucas's therapy sessions that a psychologist gently suggested something new, animal-assisted therapy. Sometimes, she said softly, a dog can reach places we can't. That evening, after dinner sat untouched on the table and silence settled over the house like it always did. David pulled into the driveway with a companion in the passenger seat, a golden retriever named Milo. Milo had been trained specially to work with children like Lucas. He was calm, intelligent, and carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who understood that healing took time. As David opened the door, Milo trotted in and sniffed the air, his golden coat glinting under the hallway light. Lucas was in his usual spot, curled up in the corner of the living room, gently rocking, eyes fixed on nothing in particular. He didn't look up, he didn't flinch, he didn't notice, but Milo did. With barely a sound, the dog padded over and lay down just a few feet away, resting his head between his paws. He didn't nudge, didn't bark, didn't expect. He simply stayed. The first few days passed without change. Lucas ignored the dog entirely. He didn't protest, but he didn't engage. Grace and David watched with cautious hope as Milo shadowed their son like a silent guardian. When Lucas walked to the bathroom, Milo followed and sat patiently outside the door. When Lucas sat by the window watching the rain streak down the glass, Milo joined him, their reflections blurring in the wet pane. And when Lucas had his moments, the quiet storms where frustration and fear welled up in him and spilled over, Milo never moved. He stayed close, a calm presence in the chaos. Then, slowly, something began to shift. It started with the smallest of things. Lucas's fingers, once clenched in tension, began to unfurl when they brushed against Milo's fur. His rocking slowed when Milo leaned against him, offering quiet weight and warmth. One night, after a particularly difficult moment, Lucas curled up next to Milo and fell asleep, his hand resting gently on the dog's chest. A week passed, then two, and then came the rainy afternoon that would change everything. Grace was in the kitchen, humming softly as she stirred a pot of soup. The rain tapped gently against the windows, the smell of garlic and thyme filling the cozy room. Somewhere behind her, she heard it, soft, almost imperceptible. Milo ... She froze. Her heart skipped a beat. Turning slowly, she looked toward the living room. There, on the carpet, sat Lucas, one hand stroking Milo's fur, the other resting on his lap. His lips moved again. Milo. Tears filled Grace's eyes before she even realized it. She didn't speak, afraid the moment would vanish like a dream if she did. She simply watched as her son, her beautiful, silent son, looked down at the dog and spoke his name like it was the only word he'd ever known. From that day on, things began to bloom. Lucas started naming things. First, it was Milo, over and over, like a song. Then came Ball and Cookie and Light, Grace, David, Mom, Dad. His words came slowly, carefully, but each one was a gift, like a lantern flickering to life in a dark cave. He began to smile, a small, shy curve of the lips that lit up the entire room. He laughed once, a soft, surprised sound when Milo chased his own tail in dizzy circles. Grace wept then, not from sadness, but from joy so overwhelming it felt like sunlight bursting through long-forgotten clouds. School became a little easier. Lucas began to respond to his teacher, at first with gestures, then with whispers. Other children noticed Milo when Grace brought him to school for special days, and slowly, Lucas began to interact, not always with words, but with shared glances and quiet games. Milo remained by his side through it all. Every milestone, every setback. He was there when Lucas got his first scraped knee and didn't cry, just looked to Milo for reassurance. He was there during thunderstorms, lying across Lucas's legs like a warm, steady anchor. And he was there on the day Lucas stood in front of his class and said, "This is Milo. He's my best friend." Time passed, not in leaps, but in steady steps, and every one of those steps had paw prints beside them. After Lucas had gone to bed, Grace sat on the porch with David, her head resting on his shoulder. The crickets sang softly in the distance. "Do you think he'll always need Milo?" she asked. David took a breath, the kind that carries both sorrow and gratitude. "Maybe," he said. "Or maybe Milo just helped him find the door. Now that Lucas knows it's there ... maybe he can open it on his own." Grace smiled, brushing a tear from her cheek. "Whatever happens, I'll always be thankful for that dog." Inside, Milo lay curled up at the foot of Lucas's bed. The boy stirred in his sleep, murmuring a few quiet words. Milo lifted his head, tail thumping once on the blanket, then lay back down. He didn't need thanks. He didn't need praise. He had a job to do, and he had done it with quiet grace. Because sometimes, the most extraordinary heroes are the ones who never say a word, the ones with fur and patience and love deeper than any ocean. Milo wasn't just a dog. He was a friend, a teacher, and a silent miracle. His steady love opened a door that doctors and experts couldn't. This story reminds us that healing doesn't always come from medicine. Sometimes it comes from love, even if that love walks on four legs and has a tail that never stops wagging. Thank you for listening to the story. If this touched your heart, let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new story about love, loyalty, and the animals who change our lives.